Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. I'm here today with Liz Odera, who is so many things, but because I've just come back from Africa, we were hanging out in Kenya at Sedili Oval, where she is not only a board member, head coach, the master of many things. Liz is an award-winning coach, motivational speaker, published author, and she was knighted. Wow. I didn't know that, with the Medal of the French Order for youth sports, as well as lots of other amazing things within Kenya. And she is in the Black Tennis Hall of Fame. Wow. So many amazing things to talk about. You are a game changer and I loved hanging out with you. Oh my goodness. Last week, was it last week? I think it was last week. So welcome to the show, Liz. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm very excited to be here.
Great to have you. So I'm going to go with our first pattern break question about coffee. I did buy some coffee beans in Kenya. You know, us Australians love our coffee. So what's your coffee of choice?
I do not have a coffee of choice, believe it or not. For me, all coffee is good, but I like the stronger one from the Highlands.
Nice.
And it comes names, but you grow up with so much coffee that it becomes stronger every time. I prefer to take my coffee black.
Yeah.
But if I take any milk, then I avoid cow milk most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was that other drink that you introduced us to with the ginger? What was that one called?
Dawa. Dawa is an Kenyan name word in Kiswahili that means medicine. So it's medicine, literally, actually, because it has ginger and a few other herbs inside it. But the main one is ginger. And ginger is known to be very healthy. It helps the whole ear, nose, and throat system, clears that out. And it's a traditional thing to use it first thing in the morning to clear the system. So,
nice. Well, let's start with that, Liz. Clearing the system and health and well-being. Like, where did this come from with you, with your backstory? Like, when did you get that passion to want to help not just 5 kids, but I mean, thousands of children, to help them and connect them with a more healthy lifestyle and education? Where did that come from?
As a young girl, one of the things that we were often told is to stay indoors. And I grew up in that kind of environment, but I was always the one who was always sneaking out and trying to find something to do. And I fell in love with balls, anything that was a ball. I started off with marbles, if you know marbles.
Yep.
Those little things you use your fingers to. And I'd compete with other kids on the street. And some of them were street kids. So I'd get into trouble for that, get punished. But I was lucky enough to have a neighbor who was from Norway, and he used to use his racket to hit against his wall. And I'd always be peeping and wondering, what is all this about? And those were innocent days. He actually let me cross over, and he taught me how to hit a ball with the racket. Eventually, when he left and went back to Norway, he left his racket with me. It was too heavy. So I got into trouble with my wrist after that, and it took a long time to recover. But one of the things I quickly recognized was that I was able to communicate with a lot more people through playing with them. And it was an extremely enjoyable experience. And years later, I found that to be the same thing. If you want to create change, you just have to introduce sports into it. And it's even better when it's something that you can share amongst you. And a ball if not anything, a ball is the one.
Because anyone can use a ball and play with a ball, and it's a great unifier, isn't it? It doesn't cost a
Yes,
lot
it
of
is.
money. That's a super cool story. And if you don't mind sharing, I know on the last night that we spent together, you spoke about some of the struggles you had as as a player
Yeah.
and fighting injustice quite early. You're a bit of a a bit of a rebel, which no wonder we get along so well. Do you mind sharing what that was like and some of those early stories in how you were able to, again, create change?
Tennis was a game that for a long time was not being played by anyone else except those who could afford it, and they were in the country clubs. And the country clubs were largely white, British, largely, very colonial, generally rather elderly people. And they made sure that they cornered the game. And at that time, it became very difficult for some of us who were starting in the game and were starting to compete to be able to get onto a court. If you can imagine, there were about 6 clubs that were playing relatively well, had courts. There are at least between 8 and 10 courts. And those courts were always kept only for white people. So we generally played in, there was only one club that belonged to a high school, old boys, which was Impala Club. That was the only club that we could get to play at. But then when the competitions came about, you had to get to the other clubs. And one of the clubs was a club that was very difficult to get into. So every time I needed to get to the club, because it was, of course, in the upmarket areas, I would not be able to, I would have had to drive there or be driven there. As a junior, of course, obviously I would have been taken there. But there was no transport that went directly there. So I had to take what was a bus that was going up country. So I'm getting in there with chickens and eggs and anything else that's moving. You get off, and then you have to walk almost 4 miles. And at that time, it was rough country. We're talking about an area that still had a lot of wild animals. People had huge compounds. And I was half the time I'd just run. I think that's why I love running so much. Because I kept imagining, I hear something and I run. And I had this one racket, which was pretty heavy, but I still kept it for a long time because it was given to me by the same person who introduced me to the game. And when I get to the club, they wouldn't let me in, although the tournament is running, because they didn't want people that looked like me in there. So I would sit at the gate with the security guys and until it was my turn to play.
Wow.
You can imagine being even allowed to use the bathrooms. So it was a very difficult time as a junior. And it was something that I promised myself one day. It didn't matter to me whether I was winning matches or not. It was just making sure that I was present. And it's always been that you need to represent. Where we don't have representation, we know we are losing out. And for me, that's how I've been pushing more representation for women and girls because of the experience that I went through. After that, I was committed to one day making change in clubs like those. And it's been an amazing opportunity for me because I did get to run camps in almost all the big clubs. Some of them were a little too far away from me, and I didn't do anything there because it was too far. It wasn't because they were not interested. And I made a lot of friends, especially amongst the children, and helped a lot of girls grow into fine young women. And for me, it didn't matter what color you are. What mattered was that we have one thing that's the same. We all love tennis, and we can use tennis to spread words, to communicate with each other. Now, I'm really pleased to see that most of those clubs have my students, my former students, as head coaches. And in this particular club, the head coach you got to meet, a wonderful young man who came to me from Kibra, didn't know anything, learned the game, and eventually I specifically supported him so that I'd be able to fight for him to join as a coach in that old club. And he's been doing brilliantly. I was very proud of him and the work that he did, and the involvement that he had when we had our camp. He's got an old soul. That's how I always say. For a young person, he's got a lot of patience, and he's making a lot of difference where he is.
Shout out to Coach Richard. Absolutely loved working with you, and really appreciate everything you're doing. You're a sponge to learning, and he especially enjoyed talking about pronation on the serve, which was super cool. But yeah, shout out just to so many of those coaches that came and were just there and so present. And so 3 words come to mind from my trip to Africa, Liz. That is humility, grateful, and perspective. They were 3 words that I really took away from my whole experience in coming to your club, working with coaches, working with kids, and working, and being on a safari. Our guide was so humble. How did these 3 words resonate with you?
I think they are really speaking from the heart. And when you are in an environment where you go in with an open heart right from the beginning, you are being honest with yourself. And as you integrate yourself with other people to get to have learning to take place, there comes that understanding that you have to adjust the perspectives that you have on how things look. So when you get in, you come in with certain thoughts and ways in which you want things to happen. But when you get there, you realize that these are not, I need to be able to adjust to get them to understand and to be with me. And I need to use things that they understand. And that's one of the wonderful things that you did when you were there. You've been here. You made sure that you brought it down to the level. I'm not saying down as in poorly, but you made it simple right from beginning so that people could, even those who were learning the sport for the first time. Remember one lady who said it had been her dream to know the game, but never got the chance, and she gave up. And she was so excited about it that she got this chance to integrate with you, but also get to understand that the sport it's not just a sport. There's life involved in it. And she actually cried about, I can actually do this. And that for me, it was an opportunity to be grateful that you were able to come and make that chance happen for so many people who otherwise would not have had an opportunity.
Yeah. And obviously shout out as well to Judy Murray and Tina Samara, who came along with the trip and also gave generously of their time, because I think what Judy does really well is show, large numbers in small spaces. And the more people we can impact, the better. And the activities are so simple that anyone can do them. So that is a great unifier again to connect people. And then, of course, Tina met with some kids about, college tennis in America. So we sort of crossed the the gamut of opportunities of what's possible. So talk to me about even you as a parent, and your children went to college in the States, and did they play tennis? Were you coach mum, or how did that unfold?
I was coach mom. My kids learned from me. They were part of a large group. We were almost 28 kids. We had 28 kids who were being taught. I think it was a great opportunity for them to not just they would have been the spoiled kids, I think, if it wasn't for the fact that we did everything as a group and as teams and as squads. And I think that is the way to go a lot of the times, especially in our communities where there isn't enough. And if you want to just do for yours, then you become isolated in a sense. You isolate yourself, but then there's the sense of isolation and your kids lose out. So I trained my kids right from when they were little, 3 and 4 years old, 3 and 5. And they went on to start playing tournaments by the time they were 8 and 10. I took my time. I didn't rush. For these days, I see parents do that a lot earlier. But for me, it was more than just tennis. It was about the social part and the health part and, the enjoyment with friends that was critical. As a result, we ended up being a pretty large team. They used to call themselves the famous 14. And in the end, they were like kids from different parts of East and Central Africa. And we travel everywhere together, and they kind of grew up together. And then they ended up going to play college tennis in different states, but, still connecting with each other. So it created a family, which is important to us.
Yep. Yeah, there's power in groups, isn't there? There's power in when you can run camps and tours, and where people feel like they're playing for something bigger than themselves. There's a lot of power in that. So,
Yes.
yeah. So talk to me about your background. Is very multifaceted from, sometimes I think, how do you do it? You're project managing, you're coaching, you're running not-for-profit things. You've got a lot of hats to wear. So how do you balance all of that? And is there such a thing as work-life balance?
I wish I could say there was such a thing as work-life balance. Sometimes you find yourself a little bit too far in one direction or the other. I think I surround myself with so many young people, and one of the first things I do is train them to talk and be open. And they're the ones who really take care of me. They tell me when this is bullshit, you need to stop, excuse the language, and they make me stay straight. But one of the things I always wanted to do as a young person that's come from a family that wasn't that well off was to embrace everything and enjoy everything. And I had a dad who believed that anything is possible. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was because he was a teacher, but so he let me try whatever I wanted to try, which was very rare for girls. But he thought I was weird, so it was fine. She's going to take care of herself, So yeah. I got the chance to try anything I wanted to try, and that gave me the confidence to be able to engage other children and in trying to do the same thing. In terms of, I'm actually an artist that became a scientist that became that went back to half art and then did, for me, it was like, just embrace everything, enjoy everything. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going back to oh yeah, maybe I should do some more art. And so just watch out. You might just see me with something. So
Nice.
I have one way of looking at the world. I look at the world through different lenses,
Yeah.
and I think it's a very exciting way to do it. Yeah.
Mm. Well, it's a great quality to have is empathy as well, the multiple perspectives, seeing and feeling how different people are. Another shout out to Coach Odongo, somebody who's great story there where you saw potential in her. She also was a lover of ball sports and soccer, and you were able to help create a career path in being a tennis coach for her. So yeah, you very multifaceted, an amazing story. So what do you think makes a great coach in 3 words or less?
I think first and foremost, having that spirit of adventure. I know that sounds weird, but that gives you more a creative, it makes you more creative. And when you want to be able to provide information or show them how to do things, you're able to imagine what it would look like and create it in a way that they can understand, because not any one child is the same as another.
Yeah.
And their background also affects them a lot. So having that matters a lot.
Yeah.
I think the other one is understanding that it's not always about that tennis has a way of isolating children and young people, and it doesn't have to be that way. And understanding that a group effort always helps everybody grow together, and especially the ones who have the special talent. And very often we find that players who travel only with a coach do not, in the end, stay in the game for as long as they can and play as well as they could, compared to players who travel where there are other players as well.
Yep.
I wish a lot more parents actually recognize that, because it makes a huge difference. So I think those are the two things that matter for me.
Adventure and inclusive, would that be group?
Yeah, being, yes.
Fantastic. Yep. Yeah, great words. I 100% agree, and I hope parents listening out there as well look at the fourth human need is belonging. So feeling like you belong to something. You said the earlier your children called it the famous 14, or they had a name for the group, and there's power in that group effort, isn't there? So another thing I know that you do is the Girl Power clubs. And we had a Women of Kenya night when I was there, which was so wonderful to see people showcasing their products, and also you empower these young girls to have entrepreneurial ideas. And we interviewed Ariane, a very successful woman, and it was a great night. It was a really, again, it was showing people what's possible, back to representation. Could you tell us a little bit about the key philosophies behind the Girl Power Club?
It comes from being in a society where women and girls are not considered as important as men. And now there's a lot more stories about that, but we're still affected by it. And you see it everywhere, you feel it everywhere. Girls are not performing as well as boys in school. Girls are not being allowed to take up spaces in the playground as much as boys. And girls are missing out on school fees, now that school fees is a requirement at primary level in Kenya, which wasn't there before. and more girls are losing out than they did before. And this has been something that comes up and, it kind of dies for a little bit, and then it keeps coming up. And the saddest thing is that girls in rural areas suffer a lot more than we can imagine. The only way to compare them would be the girls who are in the slums in the cities, like Kibra and Mathare, where they do not get the chance to complete school and dream of going to the next level. So for me, I use sports as a way to get girls to understand that they are powerful and that they need to learn to express themselves. So we start off with the ball, and it doesn't matter which ball it is. But of course, sooner or later, I introduced tennis. But we do netball, we do football, we do basketball. And because the spaces that we use are often not the good ones that are available to the boys, we use whatever we can. And we create games that help them. And in the process, they learn skills. We combine that with life skill training, and it's been very exciting to see how they change and how they begin to speak for themselves. And the final thing, which we always do with the girls, is to introduce them to business. And it's very simple. You have to fight to be given a little bit of money so that you can go and start your business. But to be able to do that, you have to create a business idea. And we ask you questions about why you think that works, how you would be able to market it, how much money do you think you will get? Are you sure that this is the right thing for you? What are the pitfalls that are there? And it's amazing how quickly they learn to adjust and set up a really exciting business plan. And then we give them money the next term, and the teacher keeps the money. And then they go and do some business. And we've done this for, 14 years or so. Mm-hmm. And the results have been incredible.
Yep.
And so it takes very little. I think it's less than, it's maximum of $20. Mm. And that's enough to change 4 girls' lives.
Wow.
So it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
It just takes, change of mind, the way we think.
Well, one girl who really impacted me during my trip there was a young girl called Nicole, and she's 17 years of age. And shout out to Nicole, who's asked me, well, first of all, I asked her what she wanted to do with her life. And first of all, she said, she'd like to be a tennis coach, which made me incredibly happy. And then she said that she would like to fight corruption in her area. She'd like to become a lawyer. And her parents don't really see her, but she sees everything, which I thought was a stunning insight. And then she turned to me and said, well, what advice do you have for your 17-year-old self? So I'm going to ask you that question, and then I'm going to share how I answered it after I hear from you first. What would you tell your 17-year-old self?
I would say try it all. Try it all. Don't let anybody stop you. Yep.
Fantastic. I said something similar. I said I'd tell my 17-year-old self to not worry so much about what other people think of you and spend less time on that and take action. If you want to do something, then do it. Just take action. Ooh. Action is more, I always say that talent is not nearly as important as execution. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. All right. And finally, what disruptive idea do you have that will change the coaching landscape in 2030?
Introduce the sport, no matter where they are, no matter who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best players come out of some of the strangest coaches, which means that there isn't one plan that life has for our future. Anybody can do this. And what you need is at the heart for the game.
Fantastic. Absolutely love that. Love that advice. Yeah, I could talk to you for another hour at least. You've got a wealth of knowledge, but please, everybody, check out the amazing work in the show notes that Elizabeth is doing for the world. And I'm just so humble, grateful, with full of perspective after my experience of being in Africa. So thank you, Liz, for everything you did to set up this opportunity and everything that you continue to do to make a difference in the world.
I would really want to say thank you very much for coming out and supporting us in every single way you did. And we will definitely use the equipment that we received as well.
Yeah, big shout out to everyone who made donations, and Wilson and On Court, Off Court. We really appreciate your support of this dream, or just an idea, an adventurous idea that was very inclusive. So using your words to round off the show, thank you everybody for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.